So the Dallas Cowboys did make a trade for Trey Lance, fourth round pick, which for a backup quarterback is a decently steep price. So that tells you they wanted Lance bad enough. They were willing to outbid the Bills, and I still feel like it's the Broncos. Maybe not, but they have outbid the competition by offering him a fourth to get Trey Lance. I'll let you start with this. Let's take it from the top here. What does this mean for Trey Lance's future?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting. I don't know. I mean, like, so for Trey Lance, the first thing that goes in my mind is he going to be just a career backup player now, right? Or B, are they prepping him to be the future franchise guy once Dak's contract is up? Because I saw Jordan or John. Is it John Lynch, the GM for the front Niners, or there's a Jordan? Lynch. I have like a really bad brain fart. They said that he'll give him, send him to a place where he can compete, where he can play in the future or whatnot. So that makes me feel like, right, like I just feel like Lance's future is not going to be a career backup guy, right? So that makes me wonder, what's Jerry Jones' plan with him? Like, he came out and said in like a presser that he doesn't want to play Lance right now, blah, blah, blah. We get the move. He's a good backup quarterback right now because his skill set kind of fits Dax, and Dax had some health injury issues the past couple seasons, and it makes sense, right? But, like, there has to be more to this story, right? Why do you trade for a former third overall pick for a fourth round draft pick if you just want him to be, a career backup guy for you? This just doesn't make sense. I don't buy it. The whole we don't want him to play, blah 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 stuff. I truly, this is my weird take. Again, Dak's contract is up in 2025. They also have it out in 2024, but I feel like that'd be a little bit too soon. Trey Lance's 5th-year option lines up in 2025, so they have to decide, right? Are they going to extend him or what? Maybe they extend Lance and go away from Dak. But then you come up with the conversation of what does that mean for the Cowboys' future? Would you pass up on a guy who's been starting for you since 2016, and he's a proven starter? We talk about it a lot. He's not the top tier quarterback, but he's a really good quarterback. You can win with him. Do you move on from him for a guy that's might have a higher ceiling talent-wise and skill-wise, but he is still an unknown right now and still somewhat raw because he really only played, 4 or 5 career games and over 3 years, whatever it was. So it's a really good conversation to have because there's 3 sides. There's Trey Lance's side, there's Dak's side, and there's the overall Cowboys side. But Emmett, I'll stop rambling. What do you think this means for Lance, Dak, the Cowboys, whatever?
Yeah, see, again, I'm trying to think of the conversations I had this week. I'm pretty active on Twitter with our account as well, so I get to see a lot of fan reactions. I get to see a lot of opinions, that I may not have thought of myself, or I may not have, been aware of because I'm not a Cowboys fan. And people were referencing Mike McCarthy's previous history of flipping backup quarterbacks. He used to draft him every year in Green Bay. With the notion of, oh, look, this guy's learning behind Rodgers. He could be a franchise guy and trade for him. And I know a lot of Cowboy fans were moving towards that train of thought. But I don't think that really makes sense for the situation, because if that were true, you're now banking on Trey Lance getting no play time for one season, and then another team offering you higher than a fourth for him. You're thinking a team is going to trade a third for a guy that you just traded a fourth for and hasn't played since? I mean, in the modern NFL, that doesn't make sense. Happen. There are so many new guys coming into the NFL every year. It makes no sense to trade for someone else's backup when you have, a Drake May, a Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Sam Hartman. I mean, we're going through this list right now. We're making draft profile videos for these quarterbacks, and every one of them seems like they could be a franchise guy in the NFL at this point. Why would you ever trade a third or a second or anything to the Cowboys to move up for Lance or to move for Lance? especially when you could have already had him. So I don't necessarily think I subscribe to that train of thought too much. I think the way the contracts line up makes too much sense. I'm thinking about how the Cowboys are kind of maybe tired of having to lose their players. They just lost Dalton Schultz. They just lost Zeke. They had to move Amari. They just moved Amari Cooper. No, they moved Amari Cooper last year.
A couple seasons, yeah.
Yeah. So they're losing a lot of their, depth pieces, good pieces. Yeah, I know fans had kind of soured on Zeke, but he was a good depth piece, backup for Pollard or, interchange with Pollard. Schultz was a top 10 tight end in the league. And now you have CeeDee Lamb's contract coming up. You have Micah Parsons' contract coming up. And you're still paying Dak a whole lot of money and not getting playoff wins from him. So at what point do you start looking at your roster and go, well, why do we want to keep paying this guy $45, $50 million a year? And we're now losing all the talent around him. Is he able to carry a roster without this talent around him? So it would make sense for the Cowboys to maybe feel, hey, we've got Lance in our building. We see his strengths. We can develop him for a year. Move off Dak Prescott because Dak will be 31, I believe, at that point, or maybe 32. And move on to Lance. Then you get a full season of Lance, kind of like with Jordan Love on his 5th-year deal or 5th-year option, where you get to, this is a make or break year. We'll see what happens. If you can prove it, we'll move forward with you. You're a franchise quarterback. If not, cool, you're gone and we're drafting again. But I just feel like the way the modern NFL is, teams are so quick to move off their guys for the next great young thing. It doesn't make sense why they would outbid other teams to try to flip him for a third. That's like buying a house in 2008 and thinking you're going to flip it. You're buying at the wrong time. You're buying for the wrong price.
Doesn't.
I just don't think that makes the most sense. And then again, if you're talking about, all right, well, we got him to be a backup, right? You got him to be a backup. You traded a 4th for a backup. Will Greer just went for, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns in the preseason game? And they still have Cooper Rush listed as higher than him on the depth chart. So that doesn't make sense to me either. You traded a 4th for a backup quarterback. I guess technically Joshua Dobbs went for a 4th too, but he's going to be starting in Arizona. He's not going to be the backup. So.
Yeah, and Dobbs wasn't a former 3rd overall pick either.
No.
Like, very, very different stuff. I just can't believe, or what you said, with the whole contract stuff, that's this random happenstance that Prescott's contract and Trey Lance's 5th-year option ends in like the same year. Yeah. I just don't believe that's just like it's like, oh yeah, let's just go get him. I think that's part of the strategy.
Yeah.
To your point, Prescott will be 32 in 2025. So again, I think it'd be a risk to move on from him. But to your point too, is like you're paying him a lot of money. You're not keeping your core because of that. You're not getting a lot of playoff wins right now with Prescott as the QB1. Would it be time to do a small restart or a small rebuild? Put Lance in there, see what happens.
Right.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, again, and even to say, I'm not saying I'm going to suggest that, well, Micah Parsons is going to be a free agent. No, but I'm saying if you're paying, DeMarcus Lawrence, you're paying now CeeDee Lamb, whatever he's going to get, which is probably going to be somewhere in the ballpark to, 24 to 28 million. You're going to pay Micah Parsons, and he wants a, top non-quarterback deal in the league, which Nick Bosa is about to reset for $31 million a year. So you're going to be paying him $32 million a year. At some point, you're going to be losing the majority of your roster here while not getting playoff wins. You need to get cheap somewhere. It just makes the most sense at that point that it might be Dak. So, I'm sure our comments are going to be very angry. I'm sure people are not going to be happy that we're suggesting this, especially not Cowboy fans. But, I think Trey Lance did show a lot.
Guys, you also have to remember, too, we're not saying anything's like 100% concrete.
No.
We're giving you all angles to the story. And we're trying to piece this out in real time. It was like, why did the Cowboys make this move? There's strategy behind it. No one in the NFL just makes a move just to make a move unless you're signing a guy to your practice squad or the 50th, 51st, 52nd, 53rd spot in your roster. Like those are like whatever, right?
Yeah.
Those are like whatever moves. Trading for, at the time, it still is a third string quarterback from the Niners for a fourth round pick. This doesn't make sense. Like they have a plan for him, and we just wanted to cover every angle, be like, what could this plan be? There's
Yeah.
definitely a plan here.
It's just like when
And there's definitely some smoke screens. I'm sorry, you can go.
I was just gonna say it's just like when we discussed the Kyler Murray potential trade opportunity. It's like at the time, really no one was discussing that, and we sounded crazy sitting here and working through a process and looking at the numbers of what Kyler Murray would cost and when to move him, and would the Cardinals really tank to get Caleb Williams when you already have a quarterback? And now it just seems to be the common belief that that's what the Cardinals are doing, and Kyler's played his last snap as a Cardinal. So, I mean, again, right now, this notion of Trey Lance unseating Dak Prescott seems ridiculous. But give it a year when you start getting into the middle of those Micah Parsons contract negotiations or those CD Lamb contract negotiations, and you start looking around and going, well, how are we going to pay Tony Pollard, or how are we going to pay Brandon Cooks if we want to extend him, or how are we going to pay, a myriad of other players that you guys have, because they have one of the deepest rosters. You start to lose that depth when you have to pay half your roster top tier money. Jerry Jones has been doing this a long time.
Exactly.
He's not an idiot. He's not afraid to move on from guys. Look at, oh my gosh, Jimmy. Oh God, the coach. He's on TV now.
Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy
Johnson.
Jimmy
Johnson. Look at the Jimmy Johnson situation. Look at the Tony Romo situation. No one thought they were moving on from Tony Romo when they drafted Dak in the 4th round. They thought Dak was a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's not beyond Jerry Jones to move on from a fan favorite. So
yeah, and
again,
I mean, again, we're not trying to say it's actually going to happen. We're trying to present every side here, and I just don't buy the notion of, again, I want to hit this home. They traded a 4th round pick for, at the time, a 3rd string quarterback.
Yep. Potentially
who does that and why?
Yeah, potentially even a 4th. Brandon Allen was getting reps. The 49ers seemed very comfortable at the time of signing Allen to move forward with him. So,
yeah,
the Cowboys were willing to go in and outbid other teams for this. It wasn't like they threw in a 5th and then were like, the Niners went, oh, well, this seems like a great spot. Let's send him there. They outbid everybody else. They found out what the price was and said, we'll go up higher. That doesn't sound like we just want a 3rd string quarterback that we can flip. You're not buying high on that. So,
yeah, the Cowboys wanted Trey Lance for a reason, and I feel like that reason will uncover itself in due time. Give it a year, give it 2 maybe. But at some point, this trade will make sense, and we're trying to uncover the possible angles again. So for you angry Cowboy fans out there who love Dak Prescott, we also like Dak Prescott. I remember that was my first reaction, man. If you remember, I'm like, why would I do that? I love Dak. Yeah. If the Bears pick Dak, and by the way, Bears are my favorite team for those who are new here. If the Bears picked Dak in 2016, I would love to have him for my quarterback. Ever since then, I like Dak. We're not saying we dislike Dak and unproven Trey Lance should unseat him as the franchise quarterback. But again, it's our job too to kind of uncover everything what's going on and just kind of just talk through it. So
yeah,
that's my spiel.
Just like in 2016, the 49ers didn't have any idea what they're doing at quarterback. And I remember watching Dak in leading up to the draft and thinking, this dude can play. I wanted Dak for the 49ers as well. Again, if you're new here, 49ers fan. And I still think Dak can play today. I don't think this is an indictment on Dak at all. I think it's more about the contract situation, the salary cap in the NFL. You've got to make changes, cost-cutting changes anyway. It's kind of actually why Trey Lance was brought in to be the quarterback for the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo was high-priced at the time. They're paying George Kittle. They're paying Debo, Fred Warner. They knew they were going to have to pay Brandon, and they knew they were going to have to pay, Nick Bosa. They knew they were paying all these dudes this money, Trent Williams, and they needed to get cheap somewhere. Quarterback was the most feasible way to do it. It's the same thing within Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Dak is still a great quarterback. He's going to have another great season and still be a really good quarterback. But you got to get cheap. You got to be able to pay people. You can't have Dak Prescott and no team around him. Who's he going to throw to? Who's going to rush the passer? It's unfortunate, but it's the reason there's a salary cap in the NFL. So,
yep, exactly.
All right, B. I think that kind of wraps up. I think that conclusion. That's our thought process. I think they give one more year to Dak. I think they then turn the reins over to Trey Lance and see what he can offer them. Hopefully, it works out for all parties involved. But yeah, all right. Well, I think that's our last segment, right? That concludes our episode for today.
Yeah,
perfect.
Sure does.
All right,
I think we pissed enough people off today. So
yeah, don't worry, Commanders fans, you're next. Eagles,
you're next.
How good do you really feel about?
I don't want to mess with the Eagles fans. No, we're cooling on the Phillies fans for a while. We got enough of that.
Yeah, but hey, just in case, just always think, how good do you feel about Jalen Hurts, huh?
Don't even open up the can of worms.
Oh, you think you have 2 number ones, dude?
All right, guys.
No, I'm kidding. Thank you for tuning in to the episode of the Rational Football League show. We hope you've had a fun time with us. I know we always have a fun time making these. Again, you guys can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok. Go subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. Who do you think is going to be gone in the league in 6 years? And do you think Daniel Jones could be a top 10 quarterback?
Daniel Jones.
Until next time, it's been Emmett. It's been B. See you guys.